curve. I just saw a wonderful podcast this week that Stephen Bartlett was banging on about the fact that schools are probably the highest, educational side is the highest behind what's happening in the AI and change revolution, the industrial revolution of AI. So that's one area that's quite worrying because these are future generations. In terms of how does that fundamentally shape society, I think that every organisation now is having to look at its HR policies. It's having to look at reshaping the roles that it needs to do, and it needs to think about how will I adapt to change.
I'm going to go out of my way deliberately to disagree with Stephen Bartlett.
Okay.
So my sister is a science teacher in a secondary school, and they were having a careers fair, and she asked me would I come along and talk about artificial intelligence. And I had kids coming up to me with questions, and a lot of these kids were doing diverse things. So some of them were doing computer science, some were doing technology, some were in the arts and humanities, performing arts, drama, creative kind of people. And the whole spectrum, it doesn't matter where these kids were coming from in terms of their subject backgrounds, they all had insightful questions. What kinds of jobs are going to be at risk from AI? Mm-hmm. How do we know if we can trust what's coming out of AI? What are the longer term impacts on society? And these were kids, I say kids, these are, I guess, year 10, 12 kind of children. I have no idea how old that is. I'm going to say 14, 16, something like that.
Year 12? No, it's older.
The
year 12.
Insight. But my point is, the insightful questions they were coming out with, and they were doing some of this stuff in their computer science classes as well. They were thinking about coding. I've worked in a lot of corporations where the people are not asking those questions. People are not learning the coding languages. People are not looking at automations in the way that these kids were. Now, I'm not saying by any means that that's indicative of the entire schooling system, nor am I saying that my experience is indicative of the entirety of the corporate landscape. But the example made me pause and made me think, well, how behind are they really? Because they do have curiosity, they have intellect, and they have the willingness to go off and do things.